Welcome to another episode of Mountain Standard True Crime. I'm Michelle Carlson. Content in this episode may be disturbing to some and is not appropriate for children. As a reminder, the information shared on this podcast comes from publicly available sources and/or through official requests. Any opinions shared are strictly that and are not intended to be interpreted as fact. Today's episode is the sad and tragic case of the murder of beautiful 48-year-old Kendi Wilkins Howard at the hands of her husband, former Idaho State Trooper Dan Howard. And here we go. On February 2nd, 2021, Dan Howard called 911 from his northern Idaho home and reported that his wife had shot herself. Here are a few clips of that call recording, but first a warning, it may be difficult for some people to listen to this recording, and it contains some profanity.
I'm very sorry, Dan, okay?
The kids are gonna be devastated. Oh my God.
Can we make those calls to have them come?
Oh my God, oh my God, I don't need to see this. Shit. Oh my God. Oh God. Lord, make this go away. Oh, I don't need that. Don't know.
Did you just punch something? Dan? 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 That is an open line. Okay, Dan, I need you to go down to the front door.
My God.
Okay, can you do that?
What?
I need you to go down to the front door.
I am at the front door.
Okay.
No, please. There's some cars coming. Oh, God damn it.
I'm going to wait till they get out of the room and make contact with you.
Listening to Dan Howard fake cry, howl, and carry on, knowing that he murdered his wife, my hubby Johnny and I found it to be absolutely ridiculous when listening to this recording. I mean, even if he had found his wife dead from suicide, a former trooper, one would think, would be able to maintain some kind of composure. I found myself kind of aggravated that he said, quote, "The kids are going to be devastated." I thought, well, no shit, because of what you did. Anyway, the call is a total of 16 minutes and 8 seconds. The clips that we edited out are just more of him wailing and carrying on with some more expletives here and there. So we spared you a lot of that. First responders arrived at the Howard home to find Dan Howard seemingly distraught, but without shedding actual tears, and appearing to gag, but never actually throwing up. On the 911 call that we listened to, it sounded like he was doing the same thing. Howard told police he had found his wife in the bathtub and that she had shot herself in the head. Kendi was found with a gunshot wound to the back of her mouth, and her own pistol was at the bottom of the tub that she was in, full of water. Detective Jerry Northrup investigated the scene. He said it was unusual for a woman to shoot herself while nude in the tub, and that considering there was a gunshot wound to the head, he would expect there to be a lot more blood at the scene. Deputy Miranda Thomas was wearing a body cam that recorded her saying, quote, "I went into the house and found a packed duffel bag. Was someone planning on leaving the house?" And in the laundry room, the dryer was running. It was full of clean bath towels and mats. Deputy Thomas said, quote, "Having a dryer running at midnight, very odd, because I don't do laundry at midnight. Sure, you could, but," end quote. And it appeared that Howard was freshly showered and had put on clean clothes. On body cam, Deputy Thomas says, "You can tell that he's got deodorant lines on his t-shirt." Howard was observed with his hands in his pockets, moving them back and forth as if to wipe them clean. Detectives wondered if he was potentially wiping off gunshot residue. He ultimately tested negative for GSR. Detective Northrup did some digging and found out that the dryer cycle that was still running with clean bath towels and mats in it when they arrived at the scene was started within 1 minute of Dan Howard placing the call to 911. Detective Northrup said that they did find signs of a struggle in the master bedroom. There were pieces of broken glass on the floor. Detective Sergeant Ken Lalaton questioned Howard while wearing a body cam. When he asked Dan what happened that night, Howard said that he and Kendi were having marital problems. She wants a divorce one day, she doesn't the next. He said that Kendi had brought home preliminary divorce papers and that he guessed they had just grown apart. Detective Sergeant Lalaton said Howard told him what had happened that night was he and Kendi had a heated argument that night over splitting their finances. Kendi went upstairs to take a bath. A short time later, Dan heard what he described as a thud. He said it sounded like something hit the floor or something, but he didn't investigate for more than an hour. That's when Dan Howard said he found her, dead in the tub. So let me get this straight. After a heated argument, Kendi goes to take a bath, and a short time later he hears a thud, but doesn't check on her for over an hour. Anyone can slip and fall and get hurt getting in or out of a bathtub. It shows just how little Howard cared about the well-being of his wife of 26 years. So pathetic. Detectives discussed how if anyone should have recognized the sound of a gunshot in the home, it would be Howard, as he served in the Marine Corps. He served approximately 20 years in law enforcement. He was a firearms instructor, and he had been on the SWAT team. Lalaton said Dan Howard told him that Kendi had put a gun to her head before, saying, quote, "She put the gun to her effing head," It freaked me the F out. And I thought for sure, here we go. And she dropped the gun and effing shot through the floor. According to Howard, this was the same gun that was found in the bathtub with Kendi on this tragic night. Dan Howard eventually called his stepdaughter, Brooke Wilkins, Kendi's daughter from a previous relationship, to give her the awful news. Detective Sergeant Lalaton was present for this call and overheard Brooke yelling at Dan and accusing him of killing her mother. When Lalaton confronted Howard about why Brooke would be so angry and would accuse him of murdering her mother, Howard's response was, quote, "Kids don't want to believe their moms would do that," end quote. Kendi's brother, Brian Wilkins, reported that when he learned his sister was dead, he rushed over to the house and walked right up to Dan Howard. He said Howard was not displaying any emotion and that when Wilkins asked him if he'd ever hurt his sister, Howard would not make eye contact with him and just answered no. We'll get to this in a little bit, but Kendi's brother, Brian Wilkins, and Dan Howard worked together and knew each other quite well, spent a decent amount of time together. At the conclusion of the autopsy, the medical examiner ruled Kendi's cause of death to be from a gunshot wound. Her daughter Brooke was confused and said that it just didn't make sense because Kendi never took that gun out of the safe. Friends and family of Kendi did not believe she would have taken her own life. She was thinking about getting plastic surgery, she was seeing somebody, she was on track to buy her own house, divorce Howard, and move on. Family also said that she would not leave her children and grandchild. However, a neighbor friend of Kendi said that she had been depressed and crying a lot, and at one point she didn't deserve to be here. This friend believed Kendi had taken her own life, and despite the suspicions of investigators that Howard had killed her, they could not at the time rule out the possibility that it was a suicide. After Kendi's death, it was uncovered that her parents called 911 requesting a welfare check on their daughter 4 nights before her death. We're going to play that 911 call for you now.
Central Dispatch, this is...
Yes. I had a call from my daughter. She lives at Kendi Howard.
Okay.
She called in a panic, and I know her husband just got home from Alaska, and they're getting a divorce, and it didn't sound very good out there.
Okay, hold on just 1 second, okay?
Okay.
What's the address?
It is
Okay. And your phone number?
My phone number is we
Your
live
name?
in.
You said,
Yes.
okay. Tell me exactly what happened.
We was in bed, and my wife just got a phone call from a and here I'll let you tell.
I got a call from a friend that she called them and she's in a panic and then hung up, and I've been trying to call her and she won't answer. She's had trouble with him before. Dan Howard, you guys have been there before.
Okay. Hold on just 1 second. Are you at that location now?
No, I'm in,
Okay.
and I got a call from another friend.
Were there any weapons involved?
I don't know. He has weapons, and you've been there before because he pretended to commit suicide. And I said, he'll kill you and take you with him before he does that. She just called her friend that was in a panic, and then the phone hung up.
Okay. All right. Hold on just 1 second, okay? I have to be on the radio.
He does have weapons.
Okay. Hold on just 1 second, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Engine 14, Medic 31 for Bravo Motor Vehicle Accident 9067 Sunnyside Road, up 1. Engine 14, Medic 31 for
Yes.
Bravo Motor Vehicle Accident, up 1. Thank you. Sorry, I'm just on the radio really quick. I'll just be right back with you. Medic 51, engine 521 for Delta breathing difficulty, opposite. Okay, I need to get your daughter's description. What's her race? Is she white, black, Hispanic?
She's white.
Okay. And how old is she?
She's
Okay. Do you know what she's wearing today?
no.
Okay. And I'm sorry, what's her name?
Kendi Howard.
I'm sorry, can you spell that?
Kendy.
Okay. And what's her date of birth? Okay. What's her phone number?
Just a second. I'll have to look at my. Where's your phone? Oh. Just a second. I thought I had all this information wrote down in case I had to call because we were figuring this was going to happen.
Okay.
And if you recognize the name, he's an ex-cop.
Okay. And I need to get the suspect, what's his race? White, black, Hispanic?
White.
Okay. How old is he?
Saint
Okay. And his name?
Daniel Howard. Daniel John Howard.
Okay. Do you have his phone number?
Just a second. Just call me. Hello? Hello? Yes. The cops are on their way from me. The cops are on their way. Okay? Okay. Stay on the line with your dad. Stay on the line with your dad. Okay, she's calling me. She's in a panic. She asked if Dad's sick. That's a sign. She needs help.
Okay. What is she saying what's going on?
Pardon? No.
Is she saying what's going on?
No, because he's there listening. That's why she said this. And she's crying.
Okay.
It's crazy. I told her not to freaking.
Okay. All right. Do you think it's been physical?
Yes.
Okay.
You guys were there last summer because he intended to commit suicide.
Okay. Okay. Hold on just one second.
I just said I'm on the phone with the cops, and she said, "Yeah."
Okay, hold on just one second. Okay. Hold on just one second. Can I, all right, an officer will be dispatched as soon as possible. Call us back immediately if anything changes or you have any further information. Is she saying anything?
She's on the phone with her dad right now.
Okay. And I'm sorry, what's your name, ma'am?
Yes.
And how do you spell your last name? Okay. Hold on just one second, okay? I need to be on the radio. Is she saying anything to him, you know?
Is she saying anything to you? She's talking, but not very good. She's just pretending like she's getting me. Because I called 100 times before I called you.
Okay. All right, hold on just 1 second.
You want her to go outside? If you can.
Hold on just 1 second, okay?
Okay.
EMS 81, engine A21 for Bravo motor vehicle accident, milepost 32, highway 41, opposite 2. EMS 81, engine A21 for Bravo motor vehicle accident, opposite 2. Hold on just 1 second.
She said he's trying to be nice now that she's on the phone with her.
What's that?
I just heard her say he's trying to be nice now that she knows he's on the phone with her.
Okay.
That's kind of a cycle he is.
Okay. I'm going to keep you on the line until they reach you, okay?
Okay.
Hold on just 1 second.
They're keeping me on the line till they get there.
And you said your last name is...
Right.
And it's... Oh, I'm sorry. And your middle initial? Oh, and date of birth? And you said you're in...
Right.
Okay. Is that for the welfare? She saying anything yet?
She's still talking to her dad because he's a freaking psycho. He'll pretend like he's nice when we're on the phone.
Fabiola. Okay. I'm going to let you go. If they have any other questions, they'll give you a call. Is that the best number?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
If they have any other questions, we'll give you a call, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
When deputies responded to check on her, a visibly nervous Candy answered the door. The conversations of this encounter were recorded on the deputy's body cams. Deputy said, quote, you guys mind if we talk to you really quick? Dan Howard, who was sitting on a couch, responds, sounds fine to me. Candy tells the deputy she needs to get something from the bedroom, and then she stutters while asking, and so I can go? The deputy said, yeah, do you mind if I follow you? And she did not, so he followed her to the bedroom. Once she is away from her husband, Candy tells the officer, I asked for a divorce and he just got home. He's not taking it good. The deputy said, okay. Candy says, I can't say what he was going to do. The deputy asks, did it ever become physical? Candy said, I think I had woke up in time so it wouldn't. The deputy said, okay, but when you woke up, where was he? Candy says, standing over me. The deputy asks, was he yelling? Was the argument like, Candy cut him off saying, no, that's the thing. Deputy says, so he's always kind of just calm like that. And Candy says, it's weird. The deputy says, okay, all right. And then Candy said, I know what I seen. I know what he was going to do. The deputies took Candy to her parents' house. Dan Howard sent text messages to Candy after the incident saying it was all a misunderstanding and he was willing to work things out. Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Julia Schaffstall later learned that Candy had told friends what had happened. Julia Schaffstall during the trial stated, quote, she wakes up in early morning hours to Dan standing over her, wearing dark clothes, black latex gloves, a pillow in his hand. The look in his eyes, it was a look that she had never seen before and that she wholeheartedly believed in that moment that he was going to kill her. But later that day, Candy returned home. Julia Schaffstall said that Candy had told friends and family that he wasn't stupid enough to try something again, that she felt like she had some level of safety, which unfortunately we now know she did not. Candy's brother, Brian Wilkins, took a long trip with Dan Howard the day before her death. Brian Wilkins said that Dan started asking him about who Candy was having an affair with and that he had figured out Candy was seeing the real estate agent who was helping her buy a new house near her hometown. Brian could tell that Dan was mad. Investigators did not obtain an arrest warrant for Dan Howard until April 23rd, 2023, at which time he turned himself in upon learning of the warrant for his arrest. The reason that he wasn't arrested for over 2 years is because it took that long to gather all of the evidence against him in order for the prosecution to feel like they would be successful at trial. Howard was 57 years old when he was charged with murder and domestic battery from an incident that had occurred 7 months before Candy's death when Howard had assaulted her. According to Michelle Lampert, one of Candy's best friends, Candy had told her about this explosive argument between her and Dan. Candy had allegedly hidden credit cards, and he found the bills, and that started the argument. He grabbed her and held her, and there were bruises on her neck. She sent me pictures. You could see them clear as day in the pictures. She just told me not to tell anybody. Candy never reported any kind of abuse from Dan Howard to authorities. He pleaded not guilty to both charges and posted bail on a property bond. He was ordered to wear an ankle monitor while he awaited trial. During the course of the investigation, detectives learned about more friction in the marriage. According to friends, when Howard was working as a trooper for the Idaho State Police, he shot and killed a woman during a traffic stop. He was cleared of all wrongdoing, but the incident took a toll on Candy, according to her friends. Investigators and the district attorney's office also learned that Dan Howard was not the person that they thought he was. At home and behind closed doors, he was a different person, which is what we heard Candy's mom say about him in the 911 call that she and her husband made requesting a welfare check on their daughter 4 nights before she was murdered. One specific incident that was uncovered was that in 2013, when Howard was still working as an Idaho State Trooper, he found out that Kendi was having an affair with their neighbor, a man who Dan thought was a good friend. Dan Howard went to this guy's office in a rage and threatened to kill him by, quote, splattering his brains all over the walls, end quote. These, friends, are the words of a very violent man. Howard was accused of repeatedly harassing this neighbor and eventually pleaded guilty to 2 felonies and served almost 4 months in jail in connection with that incident. As a result, he was allowed to resign from the Idaho State Police, which means he got to keep his pension. And then after that, Kendi's friend, Michelle Lampert, said the couple's relationship seemed to change. According to Lampert, after this went down, Kendi stuck to Howard, quote, like glue, just like glue, like hanging all over him. And she was never that way before. I think back going, was she scared? End quote. In the years that followed, Lampert says Dan was controlling and quick to anger, especially when it came to Kendi's spending. It was reported that the couple made good money in real estate in the fast-growing Idaho at the time, and at the time of Kendi's death, the couple had more than $2 million in assets. Again, Kendi's friend Michelle Lampert, in her police interview, said that Dan Howard was a dirty cop, that he had a very large amount of cash in a safe in their home, and that they lived a lifestyle not in alignment with their salaries. It would not surprise me at all if this creep was a dirty cop. Again, according to Michelle Lampert, her money was his money, and his money was his money. He never wanted to spend money. After leaving the Idaho State Police, Kendi's brother, Brian Wilkins, helped Dan find work in the oil fields of Alaska, referred to as the North Slope. He would work 3 weeks straight and then come home for 3 weeks. Kendi's daughter, Brooke, said that Kendi was frustrated and lonely, and that this time period was the beginning of the end of their relationship. Brooke said that Kendi had become very vocal about not loving Dan anymore. Michelle Lampert said that during the 3-week periods of time that Dan was working in the oil fields of Alaska, Kendi truly enjoyed and loved life. Michelle said she has never had as much fun with anyone as she did with Kendi, who Michelle says was always laughing, and shared that they used to go to spin class followed by the brewery. She sounds like my kind of gal. On Friday, March 15, 2023, after the state had finished sharing all of their evidence against Dan Howard, a deputy was following him. He ended up following him to the Spokane, Washington airport terminal, where he was handcuffed and arrested. Howard had been ordered, as part of his bond, to not be within 2 miles of that airport. Dan claimed he had gone there to help a friend return a rental car, not to make a run for it. He did still have his ankle monitor on at the time of the arrest, but investigators believe he may have been planning to cut the monitor off, leave it in a rental car, and bounce. Howard was extradited back to Idaho and jailed, where he stayed for the remainder of his trial. On April 30th, 2023, what would have been Kendi's 51st birthday, Dan Howard had a hearing over Zoom, and many of Kendi's loved ones attended. During the hearing, jail medical officials voiced concern over Howard's estimated 50-pound weight loss due to that he had been on a hunger strike. Kendi's family was upset to have him at the center of what should have been a special day for them, celebrating her birthday with her. In his opening statement in Dan Howard's trial for murder, prosecutor Stan Mortensen said Dan and Kendi Howard had fought over finances that night, and it turned physical, with Dan bruising Kendi, breaking her jaw, then killing her with the carotid restraint hold, which Dan would have learned at the Post Academy before becoming an Idaho State Trooper. Then, Mortensen said Dan Howard staged the scene by placing Kendi's body in the bathtub and shooting her. After killing Kendi Howard, a prosecutor said her husband removed her clothes, he carried her body into the bathroom, placed her in the bathtub, and filled it with water. He pulled her hair back with a clip, though some strands escaped falling across her face. He set her phone and purse by the sink. At some point, Dan Howard put a gun in Kendi Howard's mouth and pulled the trigger. The bullet's downward trajectory later revealed that she could not have shot herself. During Howard's trial, Kendi's daughter Brooke Wilkins said that on Kendi's first birthday after her murder, her stepfather, Dan Howard, held a yard sale and was selling Kendi's belongings. Brooke said, quote, "Everything my mom loved spread out on their driveway. I attempted to buy anything that meant something to my mother. When I arrived, Dan called 911 and had me trespassed from the home I grew up in. I often wake in the middle of the night to thoughts of my mom, bloody and bruised, afraid to leave Dan." Brooke also said that she witnessed physical, emotional, and financial abuse of her mother at the hands of Dan Howard. "In my opinion, he is a cold, calculated, sadistic coward." On March 19, 2024, after 10 days of trial, 62 witnesses, and just over 8 hours of deliberations by the jury reached a verdict: guilty of second-degree murder. Dan Howard begged the judge for leniency at his May 23rd sentencing hearing, stating, quote, "I love my wife and I miss her. And I'm not that monster, I assure you, the people have portrayed me to be. Kendi and I had 28 years together. We had mostly a good marriage and a good life. I could not have been the monster for 28 years. It is not my intention to anger the court or disrespect the process that I used to believe in, but Your Honor is about to sentence an innocent man to prison." He went on to say that he still loves his stepdaughter Brooke and Kendi's entire side of the family very much. He said losing Kendi took away his will to live. "I love my wife and I miss her. Words cannot describe the pain that I feel. I stand before you a shell of a man I used to be. Hell, I don't even have a shell left." He asked Judge, I'm going to probably slay her name, Judge Merricks, to consider his service to our country as a Marine and trooper for the Idaho State Police. He said he was honored multiple times for, quote unquote, saving lives. Howard told the judge for years he coached kids, he was involved in 4-H, and he logged volunteer hours. Judge Lamont Barrick's rebuke was, quote, "What we know beyond a reasonable doubt is that you strangled your wife, you murdered her, and then you staged her naked body in the bathtub, shot her through the mouth, and tried to pass this off as a suicide. You killed a mother, you killed a grandmother, you killed a sister. You snuffed that out because of your own pride, greed, and anger." Others say that Dan Howard killed his wife of 26 years, Kendi, to whom he had been married since she was 22 and he was 28, because she told him she wanted a divorce and he knew he would no longer be able to have control over her. I believe it was for all of these reasons. Dan Howard was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. A sentence that I think is totally fitting. Former cops aren't treated well in prison. Howard was on suicide watch and monitored 23 hours a day while in jail because he had been a cop, but I do not believe that this will be the case in prison. I personally do not believe in the death penalty for a few reasons. One, the convicted murderer does not have to wake up every day to think about what they did, the crimes that they committed, the lives that they took. Two, I don't believe in taking another person's life, even as punishment. And three, it is more expensive to have an inmate on death row versus life in prison. I'll do a video on this in the near future for those who are interested in this information. Now back to Kendi. From everything I have learned about this beautiful woman, she seemed to truly enjoy life. That is, when her controlling, abusive husband, Dan Howard, was not around. She was being brutally abused by her husband, and unfortunately, her family was not aware of the level of abuse. Kendi was ready to move on. She was under contract on a home close to her hometown. So tragic. I'm sure everyone who knew and loved her wished she had not gone back to their home again. I know I sure am. Our main reason for doing this podcast is to bring a voice to the victims and also to share the facts about the cases, to advocate for appropriate convictions, and to share resources as appropriate. I will share the National Domestic Violence Hotline phone number at the end of this episode, but now I'm going to read beautiful Kendi's obituary. Kendi Ann Wilkins Howard was born in Orofino, Idaho on April 30th, 1972, to Janie and Wendell Wilkins and joined brother Brian. The family lived in Kootenai, Idaho until Kendi was 4 years old before moving to Lewiston, Idaho. Lewiston is where Kendi started school. While there, Kendi played with her many Barbie dolls, took dance classes, was an avid singer in the bathtub, giving the family a concert every night. She was on a youth track team, raced in the powder puff motorcycle class at several local tracks, and made many lifelong friends before moving to Kamaya in the 5th grade. Kendi immediately left Kamaya, where she met her best friend, Poppy No-Go. Poppy was her first horse. Kendi, many may not know, was competitive and loved going to rodeos. Kendi was royalty for a few local horse organizations in the area. When Kendi reached high school, she didn't have enough time to continue going to rodeos every weekend, so she had to give it up. She still rode casually when she had time and spent time with her aging horse she grew up with. In high school, she started working in the restaurant industry. She was on the original crew when the pizza factory came to town. Kendi eventually left the pizza factory and went to work at Jalinda's Cafe, working with her mom and brother. Kendi was amazing in this industry. Her bubbly personality, her ability to make everyone feel as if they were her friend, and come on, she was easy on the eyes, helped her be a great waitress. Her ability to handle the stress of the breakfast, lunch, and dinner rushes made her a valuable employee. After high school, Kendi had her daughter Brooke with Jim Forsman. Later on, she married Dan Howard, and they had her son Wyatt. They moved to Lewiston, then to Powell, before settling in Athol, I'm not sure. Kendi worked at Kootenai Health and was well known for her bright smile and outgoing personality. She spent many years as a 4-H leader, helping kids with multiple projects. She loved being outside, attending concerts, enjoying her many friendships, and a good brewery. In 2012, she became a grandma, thus getting her own mini-me. Kendi is survived by her parents, Jamie and Wendell Wilkins, her children, Brooke Wilkins, Sean Crowley, and Wyatt Howard, Tiffany Murray, her granddaughter, Kenley Wilkins, her brother, Brian Wilkins, and countless friends and relatives. She was loved dearly by her family, and we cannot express how much we will miss her. Our hearts go out to Kendi's family and friends. I cannot imagine losing a loved one like this. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. Hopefully they are cherishing their precious memories of her. This case hit a little bit close to home for me. Kendi's exactly 1 year and 7 days older than I. And I grew up in Logan, Utah, and it's not that far from Lewiston, Idaho. As promised, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. Again, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. If you or someone you know is suffering from domestic violence, call this national hotline and they will give you resources for you or the area of the person that you're calling for. Once again, thank you for watching and or listening to this tragic episode. If you haven't yet, please give this episode and our others a thumbs up. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. It's free. If you're on Spotify, please follow us. And we would really appreciate it if you would share. There are true crime fans everywhere. Please be aware of your surroundings, stay safe, and until next time, take care.